Hey, thanks for joining us this fine Thursday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Michaela Smith, and we have a lot to talk about for today, especially with lots of winter weather happening across the U.S. So we'll jump right in. Midwest winter weather woes. Over 1,600 miles across the U.S. right now are under a winter weather advisory, so more snow talking about for the forecast. We also have coastal storms possible for this weekend. A few isolated storms could get to that strong severe tag. We're talking about maybe the possibility of pocket change size hail. Most of this weekend looks just cold for a lot of the U.S. And that's what we're talking about here, is that Arctic blast with sub-zero temperatures. Bone-chilling cold is moving in, and we'll talk more specifically about who's going to see some of those sub-zero temperatures and where those wind chills could be closer to -20 to -25 degrees. Again, very cold air that's moving into place. At any point during the forecast today, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. My producer John is watching very closely, and I would love to be able to answer those questions for you as we go throughout this forecast. Or if you just want to let us know where you're watching from, that's also fun for us too. So let's jump right in and look at these 24-hour storm reports. Not really seeing anything too concerning, just continuing to see lots of rain and snow. So we'll play this forward. All of what looks like rain across the East Coast yesterday, that was falling as snow, especially late last night, about 9-10 o'clock. And then we're seeing our next round of snow too that started yesterday evening. Now that's starting to push across the Midwest yet again. So North Dakota, South Dakota, now getting to places like Iowa, seeing more of that snowfall today, heading into your Friday. But again, not any severe weather. Things have been relatively quiet on that front. So you can look at these current conditions and you can see where this low pressure system is. Here's all of that snow and a little bit of freezing rain too that they saw yesterday, especially portions of South Dakota. They had a ice warning, and I'm going to show you that here in just a few minutes because of all the freezing rain that they had, with a little bit more still expected. That area here in pink, that's going to be that freezing rain that we're seeing kind of mixing in with some of that snowfall, so you can play that forward. That's where really most of the winter weather is happening right now. There's still a few isolated snow showers across the East Coast, but again, most of that snow was yesterday. You jump down towards the East Coast, closer to Florida. Not really seeing any showers off the coast of Florida, Georgia, north of South Carolina. Here is that snow and freezing rain. You can see some of that freezing rain mixing in closer to Rapid City, South Dakota, and through parts of Omaha. Might have seen some freezing rain and some sleet. Now it's moving into parts of Missouri, areas by like St. Louis. You could be talking about snow more possible this afternoon. And then still on the West Coast, that atmospheric river is wrapping up for today. Started on Monday. We saw lots of flood warnings. I'm going to show you some of those here in a minute as well. But that rain has just been continuing. It's just been a funnel, a fire hose kind of effect of water and moisture just coming in off the coast and moving into areas like Washington and Oregon. Here are these current temperatures. 17 degrees right now in Minneapolis. 28 in Fort Wayne, 42 in Kansas City, in the 60s in Oklahoma City and Dallas, 60s up in parts of Montana as well. But the cold air is getting ready to move in tomorrow and then sticking around for the weekend. So let's jump right into some of these winter weather alerts. Over 1,600 miles across the U.S. from the eastern border of Kentucky. Now this has even been expanded since the last time I've seen this. So parts of Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio now. So this is probably over 1,600 miles at this point. Extends all the way across the Midwest, back into portions of Montana for that winter weather advisories. And you can also see in parts of Montana, we have that pink, that blue. That's going to be more of a winter storm warning or a winter storm watch. So that's exactly what you're seeing right here. The pinks are the winter storm warning going until tomorrow. Winter storm watch is going to be in blue, and then that winter weather advisory is what everyone is seeing across the Midwest. That goes until tomorrow as well. And right here in the northern parts of South Dakota, that's what I was talking about when I said they had an ice warning because they had so much freezing rain yesterday, and with a little bit more of it mixing in today, they saw ice accumulations that required that ice warning because roads were getting pretty treacherous with some of that ice. So there's a look again, expanding over 1,600 miles of those current winter weather advisories. Along the West Coast, we've been talking about the flooding over the last several days. You can see here in this darker green, that's still where we have flood watches in effect, so portions of Washington, also in parts of Idaho and Montana. But then the lighter green, that's going to be flood warning. So a big chunk of Washington still has flood warnings. Those rivers are still expected to flood as we head towards the weekend. and then the northern, more northwestern parts of Montana seeing those flood warnings too. Down into parts of Wyoming and Colorado, we have a high wind warning. We also have a high wind watch, and then areas like Denver under a red flag warning till 5 o'clock this evening because of very strong winds for today, and things have been pretty dry out there recently. So remember, don't burn. Not a good time this year, especially when you haven't seen a ton of moisture. Things are very nice and dry. Get those breezy conditions. It is just absolute perfect fire weather, so we don't want to see that. Here's one more look at these current alerts again. Over 1,600 miles across the U.S. of those winter advisories. That's where we have the fire danger today, and then lots of moisture out on the West Coast. Any point in time, again, if you have any questions, you want me to break down some of this a little bit more, please leave it in the comments. John is watching very closely. So look at these 24-hour snow reports. Where did we see a lot of that snowfall yesterday? Well, we'll start off and you can look in parts of Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. That's where we had a decent amount of snow south of Bismarck. Some of this was where that ice was mixing in too. You can also see back more towards the New England and just really the East Coast. That was kind of the star of the show yesterday. Portland, Maine, Boston, just to the east of some of the Great Lakes. That's where we get lake effect snow this time of year, so they had a little bit higher snow totals. You can see parts of Michigan too still had a little bit more snowfall. That was on top of all the snow they had yesterday, so even more snowfall from Tuesday into Wednesday. And then here's more of this wide view. We were also watching for that blizzard warning yesterday in parts of West Virginia, and they also saw about 3 to 4 inches of snowfall. That was blowing snow that they were dealing with yesterday. Texas Aggie said, glad no ice for Texarkana. If you're in Texarkana, you were not worrying about any ice. Temperatures will get cold as we head towards the weekend, so stay and watch that because you will need the heavy jacket by Sunday. But I'm not worried about any ice concerns for Texarkana or really just areas this far to the south. So where will snow still be on the ground throughout the rest of today? It's going to continue through the Great Lakes. Also across the Midwest where we're seeing all those winter weather advisories I showed you at the beginning of this forecast. Expecting more snow this afternoon and heading into Friday. And you can also see areas in the northern Rockies. They've seen a ton of snow. That's where we had avalanche warnings earlier on this week. Still expected to see that snowfall through the end of the work week. Future radar. Here's this area that we're watching through the rest of today and heading into Friday. This is the area that we have that freezing rain mixing in along with more snow totals on top of snow that some of these areas have already seen this week. There was snow on Monday. We had a next round yesterday. This is that third round. We just keep getting these fast moving winter systems. Comes in very quickly. We call them clippers because they just move through so fast, but it just dumps some snow. They move out, but then it gives way for the next one to move right in. So let's play this forward. This is with our HER model. So by about 6 o'clock this evening, areas like St. Louis, you could be seeing a mixture of some of that freezing rain, possibly a little bit of ice mixing in, but also the possibility for snow later on. This continues to move more off towards the east. So Kentucky, northern parts of Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, by about midnight tonight, could see a little bit of snowfall, which is why they added that winter weather advisory further east than I originally had it out there. And then by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, people could be waking up to some snowfall for the beginning of your Friday. That could cause a few just travel delays. So expect the Thursday night commute and your Friday morning commute to be a little bit slick. We'll zoom in a little bit closer again and play this through one more time so you can see where some of this heavy snowfall is going to be. This is right around 6 p.m. Again, portions of Illinois, a lot of Illinois actually, you're seeing some of this heavier snowfall. Where you have these darker blue bands, that's where the heavier snowfall is expected. But you can also see some of the pink mixing in. That's going to be the better chance for that ice and that freezing rain. And then this continues to move towards the east. This is after midnight tonight. Now you're seeing parts of Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, seeing more of this snowfall. But I want to point out again, the next system is already lining up as you head towards Friday and then going into Saturday. Even though one round of snow is moving out, it's already being replaced by the next one. You can see by tomorrow morning too across Minnesota, down through Minneapolis, back into parts of Iowa, you're seeing more snowfall heading into your Friday. So as you look at these snowfall accumulations, what can you expect? Well, it really starts to pick up this afternoon. You could see 5-6 inches across portions of Illinois for today. And then as you head more towards the weekend, there's that next round that we're talking about that I just showed you. It lines up, we just get round after round. So that's increasing the snow chances along the same corridor that we're already watching for that winter weather advisory. And then you zoom out a little bit more. Now you're into Monday, looking a little bit past Monday into Tuesday. And this is still really the area that we're watching for the snow. You can see we're not talking about it for areas to the south. We're not talking about it for a lot of the West Coast because temperatures are above average this time of year. But where things have been colder, where they're seeing that moisture, especially because of that atmospheric river that keeps coming in off the west coast, that's fueling more moisture for areas across the Midwest. That's why they keep seeing more of that snowfall. So this is around noon on Tuesday. We just keep adding some of that snow. There's Wednesday. And then as you head towards Thursday, you can start to see, especially with that next atmospheric river moving in, more snows for portions of the Rockies. Now let's talk about hail for just a second. We don't have any storm chances really today. Tomorrow those chances are very low, but we're going to increase the storm chances a little bit as we head towards the weekend, especially for areas across the Gulf. So I'll play you the significant hail model for today. Really, you're not even seeing any of that white, that small hail that's showing for you. But as you get towards Friday, we're going to take a closer look down towards the Gulf. This is right around 2 p.m. and you start to see again this white color mixing in. Down South Texas into parts of Mexico, that's where you start to see maybe some of this yellow, orange color. So that shows us that maybe in some of these very isolated storms that we're talking about, we could see quarter size hail possible. As you go towards your Friday, that risk again is still going to be very low across the Texas coast between about Houston, Corpus Christi, and further down to the south by Brownsville. But it'll be something worth watching as we head towards your Friday evening. You can see some of these storms too. Really for the rest of today, a lot of that activity stays offshore. Tomorrow morning, some storms closer to Lake Charles and kind of moving across portions of Louisiana. So New Orleans, about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you could be seeing some of that snow, or some of that storms, and that's going to continue more of that stormy activity as we head towards Saturday, especially, and I'll show you that here in just a few minutes. But as of today, Thursday, December 11th, no significant hail is expected in the forecast. So pretty quiet for today. For your Friday, it's also staying pretty quiet, but we will be watching this area in far south Texas. Once we get to Saturday, though, this is an area highlighted for the possibility of thunderstorms. Includes Houston, Lake Charles, New Orleans, just south of Jackson, going to be south of Birmingham too, parts of Georgia, and then the Florida Panhandle. This is where, again, the chance for some of those storms to kind of pop up Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening. Now, it's going to be scattered storms, but some of these storms will have the chance to be strong, maybe 1 or 2 severe storms. But even with those severe storms, the hail threat is going to remain pretty low. We're talking about, again, pocket change size hail. You could see maybe up to quarters in some of these storms. Not expecting any significant hail really as we head towards your Saturday. But you can see there's that Gulf moisture for this weekend. Here's that moisture for all of that winter weather we're going to see over the next several days. And then there's that next atmospheric river. We're wrapping up this one for today. There's another one that's going to be moving in Monday. So as you head into next week, if you were anywhere along the Pacific Northwest, you're seeing all that flooding right now. Yeah, there's more flooding to be talked about as we go towards next week for sure. So it's going to be one of these systems that continues to just bring round after round of rain, even heading into the end of December and January. I think my graphics are frozen over here, so let me see if I can get them to click back on. Here we go. All right, perfect. So there again are those 5-day rain chances. Things are going to look a little wet. So for today, that flood risk, you're still in that level 1 between Seattle and Portland, and then in parts of Idaho and the western portion of Montana. Just that level 1 risk. Yesterday and Tuesday, there was that level 2 risk, so scattered flash flooding was likely. Now that a lot of that moisture is moving to the east, we're able to drop that down a little bit more. And as you get towards your Friday and towards your Saturday, not expecting any flooding really across lots of the area. One more time, and again, at any point if you have questions, I'm watching closely. I know John is also watching closely too. Let us know in the comments, or if you just want to let us know where you're watching from, we also appreciate that. Before I show you some of these storms down in Texas, I'm just going to walk you through this winter weather one more time throughout the rest of today into tomorrow. This is a different model. This is the graph. So earlier I showed you the HER model, but you can still see by 8 o'clock this evening where some of this heavy snow, this is showing a little bit more snowfall than the HER was across portions of Illinois, moving into Indiana, Kentucky. This is clipping parts of Tennessee as well, which is why they still have those winter weather advisories throughout the rest of today. Here's tomorrow morning's little storm system. This is not showing as much snow as the HER was. So Minnesota, you could be seeing some snowfall tomorrow morning, but it does highlight tomorrow morning into the afternoon. That next round coming from Montana, moving back into North South Dakota. You play this forward as you head towards your Friday evening, and then you head into your Saturday. This will be that next storm system, the next winter system we're talking about. Here you go. By Saturday night, it moves across the same areas that see that snowfall for today. So if you don't feel like you get a ton of snow this afternoon, just wait a few days. You'll see a little bit more snowfall possible. Here's the storm chances, though, down along the coast. Here's the rest of today. Like we showed you with that model earlier, most of that activity is going to stay off the coast. Then you get to your Friday afternoon, few showers and storms closer to New Orleans, parts of Mississippi, Alabama. Saturday, this is right around noon, you start to see a little bit more activity, so scattered storms, but isolated chances for severe weather. This extends in, again, Mississippi, parts of Louisiana and New Orleans. You play that forward, and that's really going to be something that we watch after Saturday night into Sunday morning, again, for scattered storms with a few possibilities of some strong wind and maybe some smallish hail. 24-hour temperature change, very cold across the East Coast. A little bit warmer, you can see places like Denver, Oklahoma City. But I want to show you the U.S. divided. These temperatures are chilly right now out to the east, warm out to the west, but everyone is talking about Arctic air moving in this weekend. You've probably heard people talking for the next several days, or really the last several days, saying Arctic air is arriving this weekend, and it is, especially for areas to the north. We're talking about bone-chilling cold. So let's play this forward for you. This is your Thursday forecast. Friday, here's where this really cold Arctic air starts to move in. You start to see these purples and these white colors. That's getting off the charts that we're talking about. So that's 20, 30 degrees below average. Here's Saturday's view, Minneapolis, Chicago, St. Louis. At this point, you're in this really cold, starting to bleed more into the south. And by Sunday, it really is a U.S. divided. If you're to the West Coast, Denver, Las Vegas, California, you're warmer. Everybody else experiencing these purples and these blue conditions, that's 20 to 30 degree temperatures below normal for this time of year. So you will need to bundle up by Sunday, and by Monday, more of this starts to move off towards the East Coast, and that warmer air starts to move back towards the central portion of the U.S. By Tuesday, it pushes most of that cold air again towards the East Coast, and it doesn't last super long. So that's the nice thing with this Arctic blast. It's not going to last too long, but it is going to be very cold. Let's play some of these future temperatures forward. This is by tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. It is 0 degrees in Bismarck. It's 12 in Minneapolis, 26 in Kansas City, 16 in Billings. Now you're into Friday evening. It is -2 in Bismarck. No, that's not the wind chill. That's the actual temperature. 7 in Minneapolis, 39 in Kansas City, 55 here in Oklahoma City. Still plenty warm, though, to the south. Then you head towards your Saturday morning. Now it's -10 in Minneapolis. Again, these are temperatures, not the wind chill. The wind chill is going to be even colder, and I'll show you that here in a second. Rapid City is 9, Billings is 7, Kansas City is 24, Detroit you're sitting at 22, Chicago you're at 0. Saturday night, Bismarck is -10 for that temperature. Chicago is 1, Minneapolis is -9 for the high temperature Saturday afternoon. Does not get above 0. It stays below 0 in the negatives all day long. 14 in Detroit, 15 in St. Louis, 46 in Oklahoma City. By Sunday morning, -17 is the temperature in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities. 3 in St. Louis, 20 in Memphis, 21 in Oklahoma City, 36. It's getting cold all the way down into Texas. 26 in Denver, 28 in Philadelphia. Portland, you're sitting at 25. And by Sunday evening, again, you were still not above 0 degrees in Minneapolis. You're talking about days of sub-zero temperatures at this point. 13 in St. Louis, 21 in Philadelphia, 30 in Virginia Beach, only 32 for that high temperature in Oklahoma City. So staying below freezing possible as you head towards Sunday. By Monday morning, a big chunk of the U.S. is talking about temperatures at 30 degrees or below that. 19 in Minneapolis, 37 in Bismarck. As you go towards your Monday afternoon, you start to see more of that cold air moving towards the east, and then the warmer temperatures are finally trying to move back in at that point, but it is going to be, again, very frigid. Now, here are some of these current wind chills. It's 14 right now in Minneapolis, 19 in Fort Wayne, 60 here in Oklahoma City and Dallas. We're not really dealing with the wind chill right now. But I want to highlight again the area that will be dealing with that wind chill. Just like I said, those were actual temperatures I just showed you, not the wind chill. The wind chill is going to be worse. So we play this forward by 7 a.m. tomorrow, Glasgow. It's -20 degrees for that wind chill. Minneapolis is 8, Duluth is at 2. You get to Friday afternoon, there are those negative wind chills starting to move in. Des Moines, Iowa, you're sitting at 15. Kansas City, you're sitting at 30. By Friday night, there's that wind chill of -17 in Minneapolis, 28 in Duluth, -2 in Chicago by Saturday morning for that wind chill, -3 in Des Moines, Rapid City, South Dakota, you're at 0 by Saturday afternoon at noon. But Minneapolis, you're at -21 for that wind chill. It gets worse. Now you're sitting at -25 by Saturday at about 7 p.m. Des Moines, you're in the negative values. Omaha, you're sitting with a negative wind chill. It's dropping this cold significantly to the south. Chicago, you're at -6. You're seeing 0 degrees for that wind chill in Detroit by Saturday evening. Sunday at noon, -6, -11 Minneapolis, -2 in Chicago, -2 Indianapolis. So very cold air is moving in with this Arctic system, but it's not going to last for long. As you look at this extended temperature outlook, this is valid December 16th through the 20th, so it's leading up to Christmas, and you can see a large chunk of the U.S. is talking about warmer than average conditions. Some of them are sitting at about 10 to 15 degrees above normal, so you're talking about maybe highs in the 60s or 70s depending on where you are leading up to Christmas. Extended rain outlook, still areas to the west where we've talked about those atmospheric rivers, they're expecting more. Like I mentioned, through the end of December and heading into January, which is why this area has continued to be highlighted for wetter than average conditions. But as you get closer to the plains and back towards the west, the Four Corners, you're still sitting drier than average as you head throughout the end of the year. Now, does anybody have any final questions before we wrap up the forecast today? I know we dumped a lot of information on you, mostly about winter weather because that's kind of the focus right now. It's going to be wet, it's going to be snowy, it's going to be cold as we head towards the weekend. While you guys are seeing if you have any questions, make sure that you follow us on all of our social platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We are always talking about the weather over there. We are always giving you updates when we get new model information about these cold temperatures, when we talk about snow, how that's impacting travel. We're showing you those updates all the time on our social platforms. And if you're somewhere that the weather is a little bit nicer right now, like in Oklahoma, Dallas, and you want to rework some of those areas before the end of the year that maybe had hailstorms earlier on this spring, give us a call if you want a hail map at 855-334-4245. You can also email us at info@hailtrace.com, or you can visit our website at hailtrace.com. Thank you guys so much for joining us for today. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, same place.